Welcome back to Terry and Mike behind enemy lines. Thank you everyone for joining. So we have a guest that's close to my heart. This young man is very passionate about the same things that got me into what I'm doing here with the podcast and fighting against all the crazy radical leftists that are indoctrinating and poisoning our children. So our guest, another fellow Chicagoan, Gino Young, Southside Chicago native, musician, former music teacher, and a substitute teacher who spent a year in the Chicagoland public schools witnessing systematic failures firsthand. In a raw memoir, Sex, Drugs, and Illiteracy, his book, The Death of Education in America, was published in January 2026. Exposes classroom chaos, declining literacy, grade inflation. I know that's going on. Administrative neglect and cultural issues undermining the real learning, threaten these Americans' futures. A conservative commentator and an educational whistleblower, Gino sparks tough conversations on reform through his book, podcast, interviews, and media appearances. You can find his book on Amazon. So, welcome to Behind Enemy Lines, Gino.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, young man. So, if there's anything that you'd like to add to your bio, please do. And then when you went in as being a teacher too, um, did you expect to see what you were seeing, and then what drove you to drive the book? Probably all the crazy stuff you said, but share a little bit about that. When you went in to be a teacher, did you expect what you were going to see?
No, honestly, I didn't. When I went in, honestly, it was really just to make a little bit more money. And then I also wanted to see what exactly was happening in the schools because we hear a lot of what they say is going on, but a lot of things can be manipulated and misconstrued. So I wanted to see firsthand what was happening. So I went in and I thought that it was going to be okay. And unfortunately, it was not. It was terrible. It was 50 times worse than anything that I could have ever imagined. And honestly, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. What I learned early on, though, in the school, one of the first things that I noticed was that there was a breakdown of meritocracy. They tell the children day one in the school that I worked in. Let me go back a little bit. I worked in the Bremen 228 district, which is the South Suburban School District of Illinois. So, but it's all considered Chicagoland. We know that. But I worked in that district, and the first thing they told the children on day one was that we don't give Fs here. We give Es because
What?
no one is capable of failure. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that they were just giving the children a very negative, false impression on life from the beginning. And then after that, I learned that they implemented something called a no zero policy.
Uh-huh.
And for those who don't know, the no zero policy is probably the most sinister policy ever put in, one of the most sinister policies ever put into a school, because what it says is that if I do all my work as a straight A student, and let's say Johnny sitting next to me does none of his work, he must receive 20% of a percentage of a grade. He has to get 20% baseline of an average. So they're teaching the children that there's no merit, there's no achievement, and they're redistributing points and grades. So it's sort of like a socialist or a communist model
Yeah.
when you think about it.
Can I jump in real quick to comment on
Mhm.
top of that with my kids?
Sure, sure.
I got boy girl twins. They just graduated. They're in college this year. Both are super smart because of mom, not because of me. And they things that really pissed me off and frustrated me is, I'm glad the kids get good grades and stuff. And this goes to exactly what you're just talking about. I think it was going into their sophomore or junior year, and the kids could get students. Say if you flunk a test, you don't show up, you get caught cheating. The worst you could get is 40.
Mhm.
I don't know if it was the end of junior, senior year with my son, their honors. He finished with a 4.3, which is, great. His daughter, my other daughter, a 4. But one of his tests, and I don't remember which class it was, but he didn't get as good a grade as he expected. They let him take the test over, and they shouldn't have. I mean, he got like a B, but
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, I'm his father. I'm like telling my wife, I'm like, what the hell is that shit? They should they shouldn't have let him take the test over, right? I mean, I was never I got a 4.0 in high school. I got a 1.0 freshman year, 1.0 sophomore year, 1.0 junior year, 0.0 senior year. It's 4.0 I got. Um, I you know, I just can't I know I was never an honor student, but I was being sarcastic.
Me either.
But I know things are different then, right? And you could see
Mhm.
the reason these teachers are doing this and making it easier is they want parents to think they're charging us more money and they're getting better outputs. In reality, they're lying, they're fudging the numbers, which I think is part of what you're talking about in your book.
Absolutely, and that actually brought up a memory because I remember on testing day, and I get into this in my book. On testing day, it was sort of like I guess all the chickens had come home to roost of the last several years of failed education and the COVID years because I dealt with the COVID kids. I
Yeah.
recall on testing day that the children were freaking out because they weren't allowed to have their cell phones. They weren't allowed to have the cell phones. They couldn't have tablets. They couldn't have any electronics. And no matter what they're doing, whether they're taking a test or whether they're just doing a normal worksheet, they're allowed at all times in the schools to have their electronics. But unless if they're standardized testing, they're not allowed to have that. So when they couldn't have that, they freaked out. They were ready to flip over desks. They were running in and out of the classrooms. They were cursing out teachers. And long story short, a 3-hour day. It was supposed to be a short 3.5 hour school day. They ended up keeping those kids there a full 7 hours, the longest they could possibly keep them there because the children needed that much time to sit there and attempt to take a standardized test, a 3-hour test
Wow.
in 7 hours because they were that ill prepared for what was coming. But really, what that was a microcosm of the breakdown of education. And it showed just from start to finish, from when they were in grade school all the way up until when they were in high school. They had never been truly challenged, and their feet were finally put to the fire, and they had a blink or get off the pot scenario in front of them, and they just could not perform.
Gene, if I'm reading into that too, is during the COVID and stuff, the kids are probably frustrated because they use their phones and tablets to cheat to get the answers at their tests at home, right? Is that
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And now that with our Chat GPT, it's even worse because they didn't even have that then. But now you'll see them whipping them out, Chat GPT in a second, and they'll be using words that they know. I mean, they couldn't even tell you the first and last letter of the word, and they're using it. And the teachers will say, "So and so, I know this is not you. This is not written in your voice," and they would make them do it over.
Yeah, when I use chat like to do your bio, I said, make Gino's bio for dummies for Terry Newsom. Made it real easy. So it sounded like it was my voice.
Yeah.
So
Well,
go ahead, Mike.
yeah, well, I mean, you're really showing a problem that's growing right now, and it isn't just in the grade school; it's in the colleges too. You know, they did a series of tests at a few different colleges where they had people go back and take an exam 6 months after they graduated, and they're not able to pass it. They're not able to retain basic information pertinent to their degree if they're in engineering or a lot of medical degrees, which is scary. But in the grade schools, like
Very.
especially in Chicago, I mean, we had. Ted Dabrowski on a while back. He's running for governor right now, but he also ran an
Mhm.
organization called Wire Points. We had him on the one time we were talking about the schools there where he uncovered it was a third grade in one school district. I think it was only 4% could read at grade level. I mean, you're doing these kids such a disservice. You're not giving them the basic life skills that they need to be successful. And this is going to haunt them for the rest of your life. Rest of their lives, they're going to get passed on. They shouldn't. They need to get the attention. They need to actually be able to have these skills to function in society, but they're not getting that. So they're just getting passed forward over and over and over again. So teachers can pat themselves on the back, and so the school district can ignore the problem. But I mean, that's only going to harm them in the long run. They will never be successful in life if you can't do basic math, you can't read, you don't have basic comprehension skills, and that's what's happening now.
I know, and that's what's so terrifying. Particularly, you mentioned at the collegiate level in the medical schools, a lot of the children are not, or the kids, grown young adults, are not able to pass their exams, and they're having to take these exams over and over again. We're talking about Harvard level, and with
Yeah.
DEI and the breakdown of meritocracy, they're allowing any Tom, Dick, or Harry in there, and that's what's so scary. That's why I take care of my body as best as I can. God knows, because I know 15 years down the pike, 20 years, we don't really know what our medical establishment is going to look like. I mean, it's already screwed up. We saw how they bungled COVID, but now
Yeah,
imagine these young adults in the schools. I mean, in the hospitals, running the hospitals. It's going to be terrifying.
it
And
is.
you also mentioned about these administrators. One of the things I noticed early on also was that the administrators are far harder on the teachers and specifically the substitutes than they are the actual children. You'll see the children in the hallways high-fiving the deans and having a good time, smiling with them, being giddy. And the teachers, anytime they would say anything, anything sort of like I guess critical of the administration, they would all sort of huddle around and whisper, like they were afraid to really voice their opinions. And I write this down a lot in my book as well. But when I look at it, and I think about these experiences I had with these administrators, one of the things I noticed was they had like this sort of apathy about them, and they felt like they needed to ingratiate themselves with the children. And a lot of them were, dare I say, white liberals, and they felt like they had to get on the children's level.
Mhm.
So I would notice they would start using like these, trying to sound black, because I worked in like an all black school. So they would try
Yeah.
to use like this southern drawl. You remember like when Hillary Clinton got up in front of that black church and she did,
Oh yeah.
so it did like that really just awful southern drawl. So
Patronizing.
they would make these, exactly, very patronizing, and they would use these voices sounding like they were on a Louisiana plantation circa 1853, and it was
Dude.
just so embarrassing. And the kids, they thought that it was funny. They thought that it was, something that the teachers were hip or the administrators were hip. But I was like, you all are too dumb to even realize that you're being insulted. Your entire existence is being insulted in front of you, and frankly, it is bigoted them acting that way, thinking that they
Yeah.
have to get down on that level just to relate to you.
Didn't Gavin Newsom do the exact same thing with the SAT last week?
He
Yeah.
did it last week. He was,
I-
yeah, he was in Georgia and said that in front of a black audience that he was dyslexic and he couldn't pass the SAT. He couldn't spell SAT. I mean, he was just a
I mean,
buffoon.
it was a total insult, right? I mean,
It
it's
Yeah.
was
and
disgusting.
then how could the guy? I mean, he's an eloquent speaker. He's a piece of crap, by the way. But
No.
how could you be so dumb to make such a statement like that? I just my 86-year-old mom. I was watching it when we saw it for the first time. She's like, "Oh my god!" It's like, yeah,
Well, you see, but it goes back to the point of the matter, which is that the Democratic Party and leftism, all of them, they believe that in order to uh, reach out to the black community, they have to appeal to the worst aspects of it. They feel like they have to be ignorant in order to
The
ingratiate
worst of the
themselves.
worst
Right,
stereotypes.
the absolute worst stereotypes, and that just goes back to their original charter, which was the party of slavery. This is what they think, they're
yeah,
bigoted people, and they're
Yeah.
outing themselves openly.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that's changed is the target of their aggression. For it was blacks, it was Jews. Right now, it's anti-white racism, but it's
Mhm.
always somebody. Somebody has to be the oppressor or the victim of their attempt for political gains. But it's so demeaning the way they treat people like this. The code switching if they're in front of a certain audience. Even AOC
Mhm.
going out and talking in a Hispanic Puerto Rican accent when she's in front of the right crowd.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is just like disgusting behavior. But the fact that nobody in the media calls them out on it, that's equally disturbing to me.
It is. It's terrible.
So, how about another one for you from your book? Explain the disconnect between the schools and parents and the public.
Oh, wow, that's a good one. So, one of the things that I noticed was that the parents would actually get upset if we as teachers or the administrators actually would call them and tell them, hey, Johnny is doing this today. He's not turning in his work. He's misbehaving. He cursed out a teacher. The parents view the school day as their downtime. They view that as their escape, as their daycare or babysitter. They're like, do not call us. You all deal with them. We have to deal with them when they get home. 8 hours a day. This is my downtime to do God knows what or God knows who. Do not call me. So that was the disconnect. And I remember there was a day and age where if a child was misbehaving, the parent often would come up there to the school and handle it.
Oh my
But
god!
Yeah.
I know, but
I
we're
would
not seeing that anymore. I mean, I
I
would see kids. I went to a private school, but I would see parents come up there and actually discipline their children with a belt in front of the whole class, and but that's what was needed, and that's missing now, unfortunately.
man,
Now you better not look at these kids cross-eyed.
Gino, I'm
Yeah.
so old. Back when I was in 7th grade, the teacher, Mr. Day, I remember him, he had a flat top. I graduated high school in 79, so I was in 74, I think. And I got smart to him. I thought I was funny. He took me outside with the cinder block walls. He grabbed me
Yeah.
by the both sit and hit my head off the cinder block,
Wow.
but grabbed my hair on both sides of my ear like that. So, let alone if I got, when I got in trouble, my father beat the shit out of me when I got home. Now
Mhm.
they don't even want to punish their kids.
No, and that's what we're seeing. And you're seeing these administrators that are validating these kids and all their, weird, freakish perversions. And I get into this heavy in my book. One of the things that I remember distinctly was an experience that my brother actually had when he was substitute teaching as well. We did it together. And he went into a classroom one day, and there was this boy, and he told him that he was a woman, that he was trans, and that it was Women's History Month, and he was wishing my brother a happy Women's History Month. And he had like this jacket on, and he put it over his head and said, "This is my wig because I'm a woman today." And long story short, he identified as a trans two-spirit vampire. And he would talk about how he would go on Amazon and order this red blood thick drink and order it and drink it and pretend like he was drinking blood because he identified as a trans two-spirit vampire. So this is sort of the mental health aspect as well. These children, many of them who should be checked out by real mental health professionals, are being validated and they're being told that they can be whatever they want to be. There
So
was a day and time where a child said they wanted to be a unicorn or whatever. You just let them be stupid, let them be a kid, and they grew out of it. But now we're telling them, oh no, you can be whatever you
Yeah.
whatever you say you
You
are.
really
You
are a
are, and
unicorn.
yeah, and God forbid anyone tells them differently, then you're in
is
trouble.
that is so dangerous. People have to understand how dangerous that is, and it's happening a lot. I mean, we're hearing firsthand from Gino, and I when my kids were starting freshman year when I first got involved because of the COVID, and I saw the porn and genderqueer, and I reached out, and the principal responded with the he, she, him bullshit pronouns, and I clicked on that because they had the
Hmm.
link, the hyperlink back in the beginning, so you could see what they are, and it said that you could change your sex or whatever you want to be daily. And I
Yes, it's,
responded, I
it's
called him,
fluid.
I said, "Oh, I had a back and forth with him." He retired that year, but I was kinda rude to him. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? You could change who you
Good.
are on a daily basis?" It's absurd for an adult to, regardless if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, to think something so ridiculous and tell the children that they could do that because, to your point, they're gonna be whack jobs when they're doctors and stuff in the next 10 years.
Dude, I
Right,
think it's
and
even
yeah.
go
Go
ahead, go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh
I,
no, I
I
was
was
just
just
I
gonna
was just piggybacking off. Hmm.
Yeah, well, I'll be quick. I was just gonna say, like, we used to deal with mental health problems, and I really believe that there's a connection between this overwhelming number of. I think we've had 9 transvestite shooters, mass shooters now, just in the last 18 months, and
Yes.
that's a sudden surge forward for something that's only supposed to be less than 1% of the population, the trans movement. For that is a disproportionately high number of mass shootings, and I think it's because we're not treating the mental illness, and then they're getting smacked by reality when they're out in the real world, and they're a low effort T person. Everybody knows it's a man in a wig. They're getting treated that way, or people look at them like they're crazy because they are. They can't deal with that. They can't cope, and then they go out and kill a bunch of people. And we just treated the base problem, sat them down, said, "No, sorry, you were not born in the wrong body. You're not a different gender. There's probably an underlying problem here. Get them the help they need early on." I bet we could avoid a lot of this. But what's even worse with like the sex changes, everything else, now they're lifetime patients of the pharmaceutical companies. They're never going to be functional adults. They're going to be on the public dole for the rest of their life because we're not willing to address the real underlying problems that lead them to this mental illness where they think they're a different gender than they are. They're a cat or a pansexual leprechaun or a whatever.
Mike, it's bigger than it's where not treating them. I agree with, but the bigger problem is we're teaching them to be like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're teaching them. So yes, not treating. So if you go back in the day, well, there was a little bit of people like that, and they would try to teach them not to be like that. Now they're teaching them to be like that. That's a bigger
Yes.
problem than trying to teach them not to be. They're brainwashing our kids. They want the
It's
kids to be.
encouraged.
They don't want them to be like us. They don't want us to talk. They don't want us talking about this stuff, right? So they
Yeah.
want them
No.
all wacky so they can control them to do whatever they want them to do.
Exactly, because if they're crazy, the crazier they are, the easier they are for them to control. And I
Yep.
think that it's so unfortunate because mental health has been stigmatized to the point where now, I mean, I just got on my phone last week and I just got on Google. I just wanted to see where is the nearest mental institution or asylum near me. Do you know I couldn't find one answer to that? Like it was buried way down on Google. I had to really do some digging to find the nearest place. And
Yeah.
I think that it's unfortunate because they don't want these people who are really suffering to get help.
Mhm.
And what's really bad is that, as you said, they're now going out and committing these heinous acts. And if you even mention it now, before they could even get to the victims, they're talking about about dead naming, quote unquote, dead naming the murderer. Or we want to use the correct pronouns. I mean, look at the idiots in Canada when they had that
Yeah.
shooting 2 weeks ago. Before
A
the
woman in
the,
a
the
dress.
police officer, yes, the police officer got up there and the first thing he wanted to do was make sure they were not dead naming or using the incorrect pronouns for a murderer. Now
Yeah.
something's wrong.
Yeah, so just so
Yeah.
you guys understand that when some dead whack job that kills people that's a transvestite, transgender, or whatever, they want you to use the proper pronouns for the murder. I mean,
Yes,
it's just absurd because you don't want to insult the trans. I have no idea. They're just They're wet. They're crazy. They're crazy.
they are crazy. They're crazy, and the bad part is the projection because they want to say, "Oh, we're crazy." If you remember during the 24 campaign, Tim Wall's whole thing was, "Oh, they're just weird." Yet you all are running around with men in complete dresses and God knows what else, and a vasectomy wagon outside of the United Center for the DNC, but we're the weird
Right.
ones. You know,
Mhm.
make it make sense.
When I blew up those posters from genderqueer, you know, they had the girl wearing a strap on, a boy on his knees performing oral sex, and I had people hold them up. And when I had other confrontations, and they would seriously try to tell me it's not porn. It's not porn. It serves the underserved community. It's like, "Well, it's still porn is porn. It doesn't matter who it serves." You know, and
Exactly.
they try to act like I mean, they demonize me. They didn't act, they fucking demonized me, went after my job. I was racist, bigot. I hated women. I hated everybody because I just didn't want porn in the school. Period. And they are everything that they accuse us to be.
They are, but that's the projection because they're narcissists. They believe that every single piece of external stimuli must validate them at all times, and when it does not, they feel threatened because it comes from a place of is a deficit in them, in their soul and their spirit, and they believe that every single thing they see needs to tell them that they're right, that
Yeah.
they're self-righteous, and if they don't get that because they're cut off from their relationship with God, so they look to the world for their relationship, and when they don't
Yes,
get that validation, the demons they present themselves and manifest.
yeah, when your
Okay.
morality is flexible, you have no morality. Sorry, Terry, go ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah. How about another one here, Gino? Personal and moral conflict. Tell us about that from your book, and what does that mean to you and to us? I guess.
Well, one of the things I noticed early on was that there was a breakdown of morality, just all just from the way the children spoke, all the way up to the way that the teachers dealt with the children directly. And I always tell the story in any podcast that I do because it's graphic, but it's the reason, really one of the reasons that gave me the impetus to write this book here. So this is my book. I'll hold it up. So I was sitting in a classroom one day and I noticed, most of the class was out on a field trip. There may have been 7 kids left, something like that. And I noticed a boy and a girl in the class sitting together just a little bit too close for comfort. So I said to myself, that looks weird. So, but I just wrote it off as, just kids being
Yeah.
stupid or whatever. Just maybe it was a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Next thing I know, I look again and I notice motion. And I said to myself, wait a minute now. I know this is not what I think it is. So I get up, I play it off, get up, grab a little piece of scratch paper and act like I'm going to the garbage, put something in the garbage. They stop. Okay, I sit back down. I said, all right, maybe fair enough. Maybe
Yeah.
I was being hypersensitive. Next thing I know, this boy gets up. He moves from the right side of the girl over to the left side of the girl. And I look at their computer and I can see these little faces, like if Brady Bunch squares. If anyone's familiar with that show,
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Brady Bunch. I see these little faces looking back as if they were live streaming something over the internet. And I say to myself, wait a minute, I know better. And long story short, the girl was giving the boy a hand job in the classroom, 12 feet away from me with 6 other kids in the room. And I just could not believe it. And the worst part was that my face was in the back on school grounds with my face in the background. I
Oh,
was livid. I got up. I freaked out. But the worst part about it was that they made sure they did it at the end of the class, so the bell rang, and I couldn't even call down for security. So I had to, write it up real quick, take the paperwork, run down the hall to the dean's office, and tell them, hey, what just happened in my room? I just had 2 children create pornography in my room. What are you going to do about it? They were very apathetic. They sent me away. Then they called me back maybe a half hour later and they asked me to explain what happened to them, and I did in great detail. And one of the administrators, she had like this Lucille Ball look on her face. She went, "Oh well, we've never had anything like that happen here before." And I just looked at her, and one of the other administrators looked at her, and he was like, "Yeah, we did because the year prior, some
no.
children thought that it was a good idea to shoot an actual sex tape in the basement of the
Oh,
school, and they
Jesus.
tried to airdrop it." Over the school airways, but the administration caught it before it
Oh
could go out to the
my
entire school. So this, just a myriad of moral depravity that I encountered working at these schools, and those are just 2 stories. My book is full of stuff that I saw. It's full of horrible things, but those are the things that really stuck out to me and really gave me the impetus to write the book. And moreover, from that, one other thing that happened to me was I received a death threat. Now, just a little background on this school. This is Hillcrest High School in Country Club Hills, Illinois.
Uh,
Two people have been murdered on the grounds of the school in the last 2 years. Both cases remain unsolved. One was a child, a boy, after a football game, 14-year-old, a freshman, and the other was a parent after a basketball game. So two people have been murdered at the school in the last 2.5 years. So I was sitting in class one day, and a girl was, acting crazy, and I admonished her for that, told her that she had to straighten up and, act with some decorum in the classroom. And she decided to get mouthy, and she started swearing and whatnot. I said, "Well, shut the F up." And I said, "You know what, fine. If you're gonna act like that, you don't need to be in my room." So I called down to security, and I wanted her to be removed. They sent up a substandard security guard, and I described him in my book, but they sent him up there, and she started freaking out, and she said to me, "You know what? I'm gonna get my grandfather to come up to the school and F you up." I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Is that so?" So I told the administration about it. I said, "I'm going to go across the street to the Country Club Hills Police Department and file a police report." They didn't like that. They didn't like that at all. And because there was like a he said, she said type of thing, and she was saying I had said some stuff to her and whatnot, they ended up getting rid of me. They ended up telling me that they didn't want me to, come back anymore because of the
uh,
incident that had occurred. And I was like, I don't need that in my life anyway. So I just moved on. But they lost probably the strongest teacher, a substitute teacher, a paraprofessional, because I did both. They lost one of their strongest employees that day over foolishness.
yeah, you beat me to one of my next questions. Was going to ask you about some of the ramifications of being the type of
Oh yeah.
person that you are, and so you answered that pretty quickly. What about how did the other teachers embrace you, either before this happened or afterwards?
It was
Well,
a mixed bag. I met some really good teachers up there. There were some really good teachers, and I worked in Hillcrest High School, I worked at Tinley Park High School, and I worked in the Thornton 205 district, so Dalton, Illinois. So I worked in these South suburban public schools. So I met some really decent teachers, but at the same time, I met a lot of, dare I say, substandard teachers that I didn't like or I didn't think were adequate, that allowed all types of foolishness in their room. One of the main things that I was upset about early on when I started working there was that I noticed that the teachers would leave, but they wouldn't leave a lesson plan, they wouldn't leave work. So there was no structure. So the kids would just get up and think it was a free period and act a fool for 45 minutes to an hour. And I had to sit there and deal with that. And the inmates were running the asylum.
yeah,
But I did meet some good teachers there, and one in particular I met, and she I think has since retired. But she told me, you and your brother, you're too talented for this. Education in America is dying. This
yeah,
school is going to be under new leadership in the coming years, and it's only going to get worse from here. You all need to get out. Find something else to do. There are other fields out there that will appreciate intelligent young men, and you all need to get out and find something else better to do. So I met really good teachers, but I met a lot of really bad teachers. I met one teacher in particular, and I was working at Tinley Park High School, which is predominantly white. Believe it's only 6 minutes down the road from Hillcrest High School, which is predominantly black. And she told me, well, you need to figure out a way to get down on these kids' level, and you need to figure out a way to earn their respect.
right,
And I thought that was such a disgusting statement,
yeah,
because where I come from and the family I grew up in, children don't run anything. It's
no,
not incumbent upon me as at the time 20, I think I was 28-year-old adult, to earn the respect of a 14 or 15-year-old. If
right,
I'm the acting teacher in that classroom, I'm the only adult in that room, you give me that respect. I shouldn't
absolutely.
be earning it, but it's going to show you how the educational system is completely turned on its head.
It's not just teachers; it's enforcement too. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
I got in trouble a lot when I was younger, but the cops would beat the shit out of us, or you like, you wouldn't be smart to them, sometimes, but I mean, they would do things that they don't do now. Now the cops are like punching bags from young kids.
Mm. Yeah, and you see this the anti-ICE stuff that's going on in these schools, where they're teaching the kids to get up there in front of the class and do it like a
Yeah.
little mini assembly and say "F ICE" in front of your entire class, teaching them how to walk out and everything. Yeah, just
Yeah,
just all types of stupidity.
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
Anything but learning.
it's the cancer that we all saw in Minneapolis spreading. It's weaponized mental illness there. That didn't get them what they want. So now they're going after your kids in the classroom where they're captive. I mean, and it's even Florida. The teachers union there is trying to make it a requirement for their public school students to go out and protest ICE. Like, it's sick and disgusting. And this is really like, this is the main problem with our schools right now, the government schools. Yeah, they're not educating students. It's an utter failure there. Every year since the Department of Education was formed, our kids' testing scores have gone down further and further. But it's not about education. It's about indoctrination. They're bringing these kids in the classroom to make them good little communists. That's what they want. They want an army of revolutionaries, and they don't care that they're crippling them for the rest of their life. They don't care about any of that. What they care about is a political agenda getting pushed forward. And if they really cared about these kids, they would be educating them. They would be teaching them basic reading skills, comprehension, history, and not indoctrinating them to hate America, or that they're a whatever it is they imagine they are. They wouldn't be teaching them this LGBTQ MS-13 nonsense and the rest of it.
I got another two questions for you, Jano. One, tell us about your view on the teachers union. Who do they represent? Obviously the teachers, but whose interests are they more concerned with, the students and better education, or the teachers? And then the other question is, when I grew up, they called teachers civil servants, and back then they did not make the money they did now, not even close, and they did not have the benefits they have now. So I feel it's disrespectful to real civil servants to call a teacher a civil servant, because those people are paid a lot of money, because of the unions, the evolution of what's been happening over time, and looking out for more of the self-interest for the teachers over the benefit of the education and what's really right for the children's education.
Well, I can tell you unequivocally that the teachers union, particularly the Chicago teachers union, which I was not a part of, by the way, as substitutes, we had no union. We were out
Yeah.
on our own. But anyhow, the Chicago teachers union serves no one but itself and the teachers and their progressive pet causes. I believe they raised around about $41 million last year, and only I believe the statistic was maybe a little less than $1 or more was spent on the actual children for every however many $100 or whatever were spent on their political pet causes.
Yep.
And I thought that was unfortunate. The teachers union president, Stacey Davis Gates, in 2025, she made a statement, and I thought it was very demonic and sort of disgusting. She said that the children of Chicago are all of our children. Yes, we see to you, we believe that. And she was evoking the words of radical communist socialist James Baldwin, and she said they're all of our children. We want to come and get all of the children.
Right.
And I thought that was funny because, as the CTU president, would you believe she doesn't send her own children to Chicago public schools? And her cop out is that, oh well, they don't offer soccer, they don't offer whatever sport her son wanted to be a part of. And I'm like, that's BS, that's garbage. But she made that statement, and we understand as Christians that there's a familial hierarchy that God establishes where the children are accountable to their parents, not the state, not the government, but the parents. The parents are responsible for their children. And she was coming in with that statement and usurping that authority and saying that, no, you parents, you sit down, shut up, give us your money, and we're going to tell you what's best for your child as the state. And I just thought that was so disgusting. But to further answer your question, I believe that the teachers unions, their interests are completely aligned with what best suits their pocket, their bottom line, and not at all what's best for the children. And it's unfortunate because I do know people who are part of the Chicago teachers unions, and they suffer because they're made to go to these crazy, I think they had a day of rage or something crazy they had back in November out in downtown Chicago, and they were all encouraged to go out there and scream and make their voices heard, just all types of garbage. I guess they were piggybacking off the No Kings protest or whatever garbage pet project they were supporting, but they don't care at all. They don't care, and it's showing up in the test scores. Only 20% of CTU, should I say CPS children are proficient in reading or math. In the school that I worked in, which was a part of the South Suburban School District, but it wasn't a part of CPS, but it was a part of South Suburban schools, only 4% math literacy in that school, Hillcrest High School, only about 5%, I believe, of reading proficiency in that school. And then if you go down the street 6 minutes to a school that's predominantly white, they're only about 20%. So it's all the lowest man on the totem pole. It's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. It's not a Chicago thing. It's pervasive. It's everywhere. The entire education system has just crumbled.
Yeah, and people
before our eyes.
get their individual school districts, right? And you'll see, and it's pretty similar everywhere, right? You'll see the graphs go up, say from 2015 to now, for how much the budgets grow, right? And then you'll see the teachers and administration, and then you see the grades go this way. It's like the gap is getting wider, and you don't have to be a financial analyst to look, we're not getting the return on investment by far. I mean, we're not
No,
spending way more money for less outputs or less outcomes, and they're fudging the numbers too with the
they
grade,
are.
everything that we're talking about. So that number would be like a even sharper decline of the grade
Right,
performance.
because
They're cheap.
right, because they're changing the grades. I always tell the story in my book because my mother was working in the school district at one time, and they made her go in there and change the grades. And if she wouldn't do it, she said, "I'm not doing that. That's unethical. I'm not doing it." So the administration went over her head, and they went in there and they changed the grades for her. So and they're figuring out all types of ways to game the
Yeah,
system.
yeah,
Just to send a standard child to school in Illinois, it's with no IEP, no special education, it's $21,000. But
yeah.
if they reclassify that child as special needs, that doubles to $41,000. So it doubles if they reclassify them as a special education IEP or some sort of advanced placement. So now you're seeing special ed classes that have kids in there that don't belong. You're seeing AP classes with children doing cartwheels in the back of the classroom, and you look at them, you say, "Okay, I know that guy is not AP
Yeah,
at all.
yeah.
He's advanced placement, being an idiot maybe, but definitely nothing academic." So, they're diluting the pool of resources for the children who need it the most. Now the AP kids are stuck in classes with children who want to cut up, and the special needs children, the children who are truly behind, seriously illiterate. I mean, I named my book "Sex, Drugs, and Illiteracy"
Yeah.
for a reason because we were encountering children that couldn't like write basic sentences. If I said the cat ran across the street, they would be asking me where the A goes in the word cat. Where does the E go in the word the? They really could not form basic phonetic structure in just basic grammar or English or phonics or anything like that. So the children are really suffering, and it's unfortunate because they're more concerned with their financial bottom line than actually and their ratings as a school than to actually help the children that need it the most. And the COVID kids are being hit like a truck. Like
Yeah.
these kids, they can't read, they cannot spell, they don't understand just basic structure of sentences and pronouns, or not pronouns, but nouns, subject, predicate, verb, anything like that, and
They know
pronouns for that matter too.
they know their pronouns.
I know all about that. That's about it.
That's about it. Yeah.
So I got boy girl twins, and my daughter is at ISU to be an art teacher. I'm like, oh my god, don't come back all weird, honey. She's not.
Oh
She
no.
won't be. She won't be. But she's got a lot of transgenders in her class and all. And she's
Yeah.
yeah, both my kids are not going to be brainwashed. I even tried to start a TPUSA in Downers Grove South, and they wouldn't let them because they said Charlie Kirk was too radical, and look who gets killed by one of their own.
Wow.
And they insisted that this isn't porn, it's not sexualizing the kid. In Downers Grove South, you saw we made national news with that one teacher, Forma Zella or whatever her name was, having sex with a junior or sophomore kid 50 times, even went back to her house. And then 2 years ago, the track coach, sophomore track coach, got caught with child porn and stuff he's making. He got 15 years in prison. And these are the same people that are saying that this stuff's okay, it's not a big deal, and they keep trying to make us think that we're the crazy ones.
Right. And they're the first ones to advocate for lawn boy or genderqueer to be put into
Yeah,
school. And unfortunately, that was maybe 5 years ago now. But like I said,
worse.
That's now past said. Now they're actually creating the pornography in the school, in
Yes.
the halls of school in real time. So I mean, forget about a book. They don't have to pick up a book anymore. They're making it themselves. They're
Yeah.
starring in their own movie.
Yeah. It's absurd. Uh, you were a music teacher. What did you play any certain instrument?
I do. I'm a percussionist. I've
Oh,
been
that's what I was.
performing.
Sorry.
Really? Well, I play drums, xylophone, marimba,
Uh-huh.
what
Uh-huh.
else? Timpani. Really, most percussion
Yeah.
instruments. Yeah, most percussion instruments I can play, and I do still teach. I teach private lessons now. I don't do it in the school system anymore, but I teach private lessons at a place in Orland Park, Illinois.
Yeah, I
But
know. I went to Oakland High School, so I know that area. Yeah.
mhm. Yeah,
Wow.
so I did percussion and I did voice.
I just did a trap set. I just sold a trap set. We're moving, right? And I bought my kid a trap set. I tried to get him to play drums because I started out marching band back when they had a Columbus Day parade when they were allowed to. They still do as the schools go. And then I was a percussionist in freshman sophomore year, and I was in concert band. I was the lead percussionist and timpani, like bass and marching band. And like an idiot back in the '70s, it was easy. It was a lot rougher too, and you
Mhm.
could not be a jock and be a quota band fag, even though you're as the percussionists are, a little different than the rest of them, right? and
Right. Yeah.
I had to choose between peer pressure and being part. So I quit when I was, and that was one of the biggest regrets of my life. And my brother took over my trap set, and he's in a band with his wife. They play all over the place, and every time I see him, I'm like so pissed at myself.
Yeah. It's
But
rewarding. It's tough, as a musician, you have to stick with it. It's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the instant gratification. You have to stick with it. But once you do, it's one of the most rewarding things you can do
yeah,
to
it
just to
is.
create something out of
Yep.
nothing.
I would still remember this, even though I was a sophomore. There's something. It's like a drug when you're in the band playing together. It's hard to explain,
Yeah.
right? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, and then I was all excited when the movie Drumline came out. I'm like, wow, they're making drumming cool, man. The kids are going to get into drumming. I hope they did. I don't know if it did because you probably know better than I, but I remember
Yeah.
watching it with my kid, and I'm like, look, this is cool.
I remember the drumline era. That was big. That was like maybe '04, '02 over in there. It was really big. I remember because I would have been in grade school. I would have been young at that time. But I
Mhm.
remember drumline. I remember our music teacher, Mr. Murphy, Robert T. Murphy, as a matter of fact. I actually dedicate this book to him, best teacher I ever knew.
Wow, wow,
And yeah, first page of the book is to Mr. Murphy. But I remember he would always be showing drumline. He would always be showing drumline, and he would always tell us, in the percussion section, that's what I want you all to do. This is
yeah,
what I want you all to be like. So I remember drumline. But full disclosure, funny enough, I always hated like ensemble bands. I hated marching band. I never liked it because I was always used to playing in like a small group because I performed with my brothers. I
yeah,
play drums. They would play. My older brother plays piano. My younger brother plays bass. So I was always used to like a small group, but like orchestra and band. Orchestra was okay, but band was just nothing I really ever liked. And then it was bad because we had to have band camp, and we'd be out there, and it would be 100 degrees out there, and we had to be out there all day, 9 hours. It was rough. So I only did band 1 year in high school, but after that, I gave it up. I was like, not for me.
yeah. Oh, so like I was back in the day too when I was in grammar school and marching band and Kilkenny Cadets and stuff. My teacher was, man, brutal. He would hit us on top of the knuckles with the drumstick. Like man,
Yeah,
you screw around, now you go to jail.
yeah,
Yeah.
the teacher I dedicate this book to, he would do the same thing. He never
Oh,
hit me, but
really?
he would hit the other kids. And we're talking like maybe 2010,
Yeah.
2009. He would
Wow.
say, so and so Oscar, because there was a boy named Oscar. He was always acting the fool. He said, Oscar, come on, come on. And he hold out your hand and he'd take the big bass drum mallet because Oscar
Yeah,
played the bass drum
yeah.
and he'd whack him in the middle of his hand. It was
Yeah.
funny.
And I think
Yeah.
when marching band, we had a bigger stick, 2B, not I forgot which, it was a thicker one and stuff, right? And then you can't go home and tell your dad because then he'll hit you for getting hit. Now they go to
Exactly.
your parents and they'll try to get him arrested.
Right. Now you can't you better not even say anything. You better not look at him. Nothing.
Yeah, I know we're digressing a little bit here. My oldest daughter, she's 32, and from my first marriage, and when she was in first or second grade, and I lived in Burridge at the time, Pleasantdale School District, all like Lily like people wealthy and stuff. And I was at Target. She wasn't listening to me. She was running, and I flicked her with my middle finger on her head. I went like that. I get a call from the counselor who I didn't know who he was. Mr. Walsh is his name. And I went in with my ex-wife. I'm like, what the hell is this out? We're in a conference room. So, Mr. Newsom, I understand that you flicked Nicole. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm sitting there thinking to myself. He
Really.
goes, she told me you flicked her. Now, have you ever been flicked? I'm like, yeah. He goes, have you flicked yourself in the head really hard? And I'm like thinking, you fucker. I was like, he goes, "Now listen, I'm not gonna, write up or something or whatever it was now." He goes, I don't want you to do it again." And I was like, "Holy shit." I was so pissed.
You should have been.
I wanted to flick him. And I was
Of
like,
course, but
it's like, "Are you kidding me?" I mean, that matter of fact, that was the only time I didn't even hit her. It was a flick. I never even hit my kid.
yeah,
And he
but it goes to show
called
you how
me.
long this has been going on, how this is, metastasized. Now they were telling you what to do as a parent, how to discipline. Now they're telling your children what they are and what
Yeah.
they can be.
And he's not gonna
Yeah.
write me up like he gave me a break. It's like, and I knew enough. First of all, I was caught off guard. Secondly, I was like, I probably shouldn't tell him to go screw himself because I thought he had a lot of balls to call me in as a father
He
for
did.
for doing that. So it's only progressed and got worse. And now the kids. Oh, then my daughter told me after that. he said something. She goes, "I'm going to tell Mr. Walsh." I go, "Go ahead. He's going to take you away." I was going
Innocent
to
sister.
go to other family. Go ahead, tell him. So, what was of all you? I know you got a lot of stories in your book, right?
Mhm.
What was I know the sex thing, but what were some of the other maybe interesting stories? We got what, about 10 minutes left. Some of
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Well,
some of the other
I'll
interesting
give you
stories. I'm sure you got a lot. Give us a
I
few.
do. One comes to mind. I'll give you a classic crime story. I don't get to tell this one often, so this is a privilege. Um, so there were these two girls who decided that they wanted to go out into the parking lot and smoke or do whatever. Now, the rules of the school are as follows. During the school day, no one's allowed to leave. If you leave for any reason, you have to come through the front door of the school for security reasons because they don't know if you're out there. You might have a gun, you might be trying to bring somebody
Yeah.
in there. They don't know. So you have to come in through the front. So that's the protocol. But these two girls, they decided that they were going to enter through the rear. So they saw a teacher who they knew, a paraprofessional, who worked with special needs kids who they knew, and they said, Miss So and so, Miss So and so, can you let us in? And she was coming back from her break, so she was entering through the rear of the school. She said, girls, you all know better. You know that you cannot be out here during the school day, and if you are, you have to go around through the front. And they didn't want to do that because they knew that they would have been caught playing hooky, and the school would have called their parents. So they decided they weren't going to do that. And so they got mad at the teacher. The teacher runs in the school, slams the doors and locks it and points, said, go around to the front. And the girls get mad. And for whatever reason, the teacher went back outside. I'm not really sure why, but she went back outside and the girls got in the car, drove around, opened up their passenger window and threw a cup full of water in her face. Now she didn't know what the substance was. It could have been anything. So she just reacted. She
Yeah.
vaulted through the window, the passenger window, grabbed the girl by her throat and was choking her, like put her nails to the back of her throat, was choking the girl in the car. The girl in the driver's seat puts the pedal to the metal, floors it, and starts dragging the teacher, dragging her through the parking lot like something, off of
Yeah.
some criminal show,
Yeah.
dragging her through the parking lot, and she's hanging out the window with her hands embedded into this girl's throat. She never let go, was flailing, kicking out the window. And unfortunately, another teacher was walking across the parking lot, and long story short, they ended up slamming into that teacher and damaging her leg.
Wow.
So these two girls who were out of control, should not have been out there in the parking lot, were somehow allowed to slip out, and they ended up assaulting one teacher and injuring another one with the car. And the teacher, I've been told, the teacher that was assaulted with the water did not return the school year. So I
The one
guess for whatever reason they
that she
didn't.
strangled to beat the kid. Right. She strangled
Well,
the kid, right?
well, I don't know. Maybe that was part of it, but they had an investigation, and the girls, I don't think they did anything to the girls. And one of
Yeah, right.
the teacher that got hit by the car was saying that she may press charges, but I don't believe that she did anything. And so the whole thing just sort of went by the wayside. But that's probably one of the craziest stories that I remember. The teacher telling me, because I was friendly with her, and she would just sit there and just tell me things that occurred to her. So that was one incident that I distinctly remember, when a teacher got dragged by kids in a car.
Wow. Did you
Yeah.
ever have some of these young punk kids bit very, like, confrontational and threatening to you? Throughout that
Oh
whole
yeah,
year
big
when you
time.
hear about the dad?
Because yeah, it was a lot of that. It was a lot of that, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment, because there's a caricature of how young black men are supposed to carry themselves, and I frankly looked younger than some of them. I don't know what they were doing,
Right,
what they were on, maybe just bad genes, but I looked younger than some of
right.
them because they come in the room and say, "Why does our substitute look like a senior? Why does he look like he's one of the kids?" So it was just a
Yeah, yeah,
baseline of a disrespect just off the bat. You got that. But I remember the kids one time in particular, they were being unruly and using all types of just disgusting, deplorable language. And I would tell them, that's not appropriate for classroom. Have some decorum. You can't be sounding like you're on the corner of 63rd Street in the classroom. You can't be doing that. And they didn't like that very much. And I remember one boy decided that he was just going to do it anyway. And I got up to him, I got in his face, and I said, young man, I said, you don't want to fuss, Fuss,
yeah, yeah,
fuss
yeah,
with
yeah,
me
yeah,
today. But I said it in a way where I
yeah,
enunciated to
yeah,
make it sound like, in other class, they were,
yeah,
ooh, they were looking around like they couldn't believe I said that. And he said, I don't give a F what you say. I said, you know what? I'm
yeah,
throwing you out here. So I hit the bell. I said, Miss So-and-so down at the desk. I said, send the security and send them fast. I said, get this kid out of this room. Get him out right now. And he starts getting belligerent, and the security comes. I said, get that one. I said, you, and you. It was like 5 boys. I said, I want them all out of here. One of these kids got up and he started cussing me out. I mean, I've never had anyone frankly speak to me like that before. And he was,
Yeah.
just going off and whatnot. And I said some things to him. I won't say what I said, but I said them in the book. And so, if you want to know, pick up a copy. I definitely fired back on him. There was some return fire on him, and it was so bad they ended up having to drag him out of the classroom. And then there was another incident. It was always boys normally, other than the girl that threatened.
Yeah.
It was normally boys because they're just
Yeah.
unfortunately the background they come from, and we know what that is. But I remember there was one boy, and he was acting a fool. It was before the bell rang. He was out in the hallway, and I was telling the kids, come into the room, no huddling around the door. He decided that he was going to do it anyway. So I closed the door. I said to the class, I said, don't you dare touch this door. I said, none of you let him in. He gets mad. Somehow, some fool gets up, opens up the door, and lets the boy in. He comes in. He's swearing and cussing me out and whatnot. I once again get on the loudspeaker, call down the front desk, say, "Hey, I got a kid that's being belligerent. You all have to get him out of here." They come and they get him out of there. And he says to me, he says, "F you and F your mama."
Yeah.
And I looked at him. I said, "Well, I would say something about your daddy, but you and I both know no one knows who that is." And they had to. They had to drag him out of there. So that was a bad incident, just
Yeah.
terrible. And one final thing that I will say, one final incident that I had, and this involved the same girl that gave the boy the hand job. This is the same girl. About a month later after that, there was no accountability. So the girl, she was just a loose fool in the school. So she thought she could do whatever with impunity. So I was in the class one day. It was 8th period at the end of the day. I finally made it to the end of the day. I was like, thank you, Jesus. I'm at the end of the day. I'm sitting in a classroom and everything's quiet. The door swings open, and the same girl, the hand job girl, comes into the room and starts screaming at another girl in the room. She's screaming at her, "Are you trying to F my man?"
Uh,
And I look up, and she says, "Are you trying to F my man?" And I said, "Young lady, you cannot use that language in this classroom." She looks at me, doesn't even look at me. She just keeps on doing what she's doing. And the other girl she was accosting was so upset that she got up out of her seat and ran out to the hallway. The hand job girl goes out there in the hall, starts beating up the girl, like punching her in her face, throws her down, like beats her up to a pulp. Kids start flying out of my class like a wild herd of animals
yeah.
and huddling around, pulling out their phones, recording it. And then after she beats up the girl, she lifts up her shirt and flashes the entire hallway full of kids as if to say, "Yeah, B, this is my body. This is what belongs to him. And this is what you'll never have, or this is what belongs to him, whatever." So she does that, and I get up, I slam my door, I said, "Look, whoever's in this room right now is who I'm accounting for. Is who I'm counting for attendance. No one else will be admitted." I said, "Don't you all dare touch that door." So I hear bamming on the door. The other kids that ran out there to get the scoop, they're bamming on the door trying to get in. I would not let them in. Next thing I know, I hear the door goes beep, beep, beep. And I look, and the door swings open from the outside now. It unlocks from the outside. And just this cavalcade of unruly kids just come storming and dancing into the room. And I'm sitting there for the remaining 30 minutes of the period, perplexed, trying to figure out how in the world these kids got through that lock, because they just put new, like $2,000 locks on the doors that are all, key fob locks. So I'm trying to figure out, how did they get in? Did they use a credit card trick? Did they, somehow jimmy the lock? How did they get in? I get to the end of the day, and my supervisor's standing down there, and I tell her the story. And it just so happens that the teacher, who was a neighboring teacher to this classroom, is standing there. And she says, "Oh, Dean so-and-so let them in." I said, "What did you say?" She said, "The dean let them into that classroom." And I was just looking down, because he did not come to me. He didn't, tell me anything. He didn't ask me. He didn't say, "Are these kids supposed to be in your room?" They could have been anybody. He just threw the door open and was like, "You deal with them. Your problem, not mine. You deal with it." And I was so upset. I just walked out that day. I said, "You know what? Before I say something out of character, just let me get out of this classroom, get out of the school." So
Yeah.
that just goes to show the breakdown from top to bottom, whether it's the administrators, the deans, the teachers. These kids, they don't have a chance. Just from inception, they don't have a fighting chance.
Mhm.
They don't.
How many, you say security, how many, like, do you have security, or do you have a police officer? Like, what is I imagine they got more than one, right?
Oh yeah, they had a lot. They actually had a lot, because next door, they're right next door to the police department. Country Club Hills Police was right next door, so they actually had actual police officers in there. And the kids, it didn't make them a difference. They would be disrespecting them.
Yeah.
There's a story in the book I tell about one of the police officers that the kids got mouthy with him, and one of the police officers grabbed the boy and slammed him against the wall and said, he said, I will beat the F out of you, or something like that to him, and just like picked him up, lifted him up off the ground, and told him, he said, I'm not a rent-a-cop. He said, I'm not security. He said, I'm the real mother effing police, and I will knock you the F out. I will take you the F out. And the boy was upset and was shaking because, he had been embarrassed in front of his friends. So he said that he was going to get his daddy to come up to the school and deal with the cop. And the cop said, go and bring your daddy up here. You'll never view him the same because he's going to get his ASS beat in front of his son. You'll never look at your daddy the same way again. So, it was so many different things, but they didn't respect us. They didn't respect the police officers. They certainly didn't respect the little security guys they had running around there. So it was just bad. It was terrible. I wouldn't wish on anyone.
Yeah, I went to Oakland High School, graduated '79. I think in '79, which is kind of early, we had a cop that started working at Oakland High School in 1979. That was, that now I think they got like that's why I asked you. I think they got like depending on the school, they got multiple cops and guards
They
and
do?
stuff.
Yeah.
And metal detectors. They got metal detectors, I hear now.
Yes, yes, they have metal detectors. They sure did have metal detectors, and the kids can only enter into the entrances with metal detectors during the school
Crazy,
hours.
isn't it? It's crazy that
It's very crazy. I mean, I wasn't used to any of that. Growing up, we didn't have any of that, thank God.
yeah.
I guess different world, right?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
different world. Crazy, man. And then cops would hit if we did something wrong and stuff, I got punched in the neck at McDonald's when I was a senior. After a basketball game, you don't go home and tell your parents that because you get punched again.
No. Right, you're gonna get hit again. That's common sense,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, any closing statements, and we gotta make sure you tell everyone where to get your book because I bet
Sure, so
and
yeah, so the book, you can find it on Amazon.com. Amazon, actually, the book is on back order, sold out twice. So
great.
Nice.
yeah, so God is good. But if you want the book delivered to your door this week, you can get it on bookbaby.com, or just go to Google, just type sex, drugs, illiteracy book or Gino Young book, and it comes up. You'll see Book Baby, you'll see Amazon. You can also get it on my website. Just go to www.ginoyoung.net, and all the links are available there. My social media is there. You can follow me on X at Gino for America, Instagram at official Gino Young, Facebook at Gino for number 4 Chicago. But if I could leave just one statement with the parents, just know that your child's school is but one administration change or one principal change away from failure. You need to watch every single thing that your children are doing. Watch what they bring home. If they're being quiet or if you see them withdrawn, ask them what's going on in the schools, because there's a lot that's going on that they don't feel that they can come home and talk about. And understand that no one is going to save your children. Parents, you have to be proactive. You have to understand that you are your last best hope for your children, and that if the children are coming home with crazy stuff, or they're coming home with a curriculum that looks untoward, you can go up to the school and request to see the curriculum. There's something called the PPRA, the Pupil Protection Rights Amendment, that allows parents to request to see curriculum materials from the school, and they cannot deny your request. I understand that people can feel intimidated. You can feel alone. Go up there in groups, get you some strong men, women bound together. Go up there and demand to take action, demand to see your curriculum and take action and advocate for your own children. Because if you don't, then I truly fear for our children, because education as we know it is dead. And if parents don't step up, no one else will.
No, that's
So
great.
that's my
Yeah,
that's my little spill.
coaching. And what's really frustrating to me is that when I went to my first school board meeting, I would talk. I talked to them like on a email and stuff, and on the phone. And I got there 30 minutes late in August before my kids were freshmen before they started, and there was 12 women and 1 man. And
Mhm.
I'm very disappointed that the men don't help
The
their
man,
wives. It's
yeah,
like, where the hell? When I had those signs made, I couldn't get one man. I couldn't get any parents to hold those posters up for me. Not one.
it's
They were all
pathetic.
scared. I had
Yeah.
Proud Boys come, Proud Boys as fathers. I said, because they're like, "Yeah, we'll come and help you." They're dads. I mean, the guys I had come, they're dad. There's some misfits, honestly, but they're not racist. They're not, they're the head guys from Mexico, and they're the only ones that would hold my signs. And then when the Sun Times puts a front page, they came as fathers. I said, "Don't come dressed up in your crap, please. Just hold my signs." I paid $350 for them while I'm doing my speech report. And they turned the whole thing left. The Sun Times, racist Proud Boys show up. No, they didn't even say anything. They just held my posters because I couldn't get a father to help me. Not one. Not one.
Right, and
had the courage to help me in Downers Grove. So it's not a black problem. It's not a white problem. It's just a problem
No.
in general.
It's a
Yep.
problem. It's just it's a weak male problem. And these are the loudest people on Facebook. They're on every app. They're on in every Facebook group, patriots for this, patriots for that. And you can't get 10 people to show up to a school board meeting. Something's wrong with that.
Yes. Oh my
Yeah, it's
God.
pathetic.
But you're a patriot.
Yeah.
But you're a patriot though.
Yeah, and
Right.
you made me think of something else. You got, talking about maybe a civil war and this and that, right? They don't know, especially like the white suburban guys. We got AR-15s. I go, man, you won't even go up to a fucking school board meeting, hold a poster. So don't tell me you're gonna
Exactly.
be in the streets.
Yep.
If you don't stand up for your own children, you're not gonna. When things get rough, you're not gonna go out in the streets and fight because you won't go to a damn school board meeting. So don't tell me that we're not worried. You're worried.
Right. I mean, just bring the tough guy act down to a -1, please, because you're not gonna bust a grade. They're not gonna do anything.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, this is great having you on. And now that my kids are out Downers Grove, I went over to the Downers Grove North School when they had out in front just about 2 months ago, Gene. I don't know if you saw it. They had Marxists out there with a table set up when the kids come out of school, trying to recruit them and indoctrinate them. So
I didn't see that. Wow. I missed that one.
there's like when we had a group, it was the same group of small. And matter of fact, I had me and just maybe another one or two parents had children that were in the Downers Grove High School system. It was all grandparents and older folks. Now that we're out of, no one picked up the baton. There's nobody going to these school board meetings,
I can believe it.
and
I can certainly believe it.
they're giving up. And it's with what you said in your closing statement. You got to get involved. You got to get involved, man, because we're losing our kids to these Marxists.
We are, and
Yep.
they're taking so much territory, and they make no bones about it. They're going they're going for broke, and they're playing for keeps, and they don't care. They have an agenda, they have a playbook, and they stick to it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah,
just
well, if you
look
won't
at it
do
the
it-
way, right?
Sorry, go ahead. I was gonna say, yeah, if you won't do it, don't expect somebody else to stand up for your kids.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
Michael, why don't you close us out here? And then, what the guy? So Thursday we got a guest, right? You're going to host. Geez, what's
Yeah,
his name?
with Mickey and I, and it's is that the day that
Yeah, I got a dinner for work. What's the name? What's the name of the guest?
let me double check.
God, I forgot the guy's name. You knew him.
Oh, it's hang on.
See,
Was
see,
the,
Gino,
uh,
I was a poor student. I can't remember anything. I have ADD. I was a trouble kid. You didn't have ADD then back then.
Is it hang on a second.
That's all right. We'll put it up there. I should have had it ready here. I was my bad. Well, just
Well, no-
close this out. Don't worry about it. We'll post it up later.
Yeah, no worries. All right, Gino, we really do need somebody like you out there fighting. We need you restructuring our schools and getting rid of these teachers that are just poisoning their minds and destroying America's future. To the audience, thank you for joining us tonight. Please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to bring more news, bring you the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. And we'll be back on Thursday with even more. Thanks again, guys.